We're going to be doing our first tech video for our YouTube channel, and the topic is going to be setting up oiling on open rocker 36 or 37 motors. This bronze brown 1937 knucklehead is pretty special. It belongs to one of my favorite guys. We built it a couple years ago, and we finished it in the winter. We fired it up. We did 2 other open rocker motors at the same time, and they were perfect. And did a good job of returning oil. And this one, it seemed like it kind of needed some adjustments. So we just put it away, and now we're finally getting around to it. And we're going to talk to you guys about how you do it. So
we're going to put it back in service and ride the heck out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Wear it out.
Wear it out and redo it in another 40,000 miles.
You bet.
So if you want to zoom in, we can talk about the motor. Okay, so this is the second year of Knucklehead motors, and that's an overhead valve, single cam engine. The cam's right here. The lobes hit tappets, and then they hit the rocker arms. And Harley only had covers over the valve springs and valve keepers, and the arms are out in the open. So this was a good design for the time. But in 38, they came out with full enclosures, and that was really the cat's meow. So when we rebuild these motors, we have to dimensionally restore the rocker arm and the rocker arm shaft and get those to a super precise fit for the OD, inside and outside. And then we have to make special thrust washers to get the end play just right. Because if that isn't right, it blows a lot of oil out past this little area here where the arm goes up against the head itself. So once those are right, all you have to do is worry about getting the oil that comes up through this line, goes through these passages, goes up into the rocker arms, through the rocker arms, into the valve spring, and then it gets sucked out through the push rods, through these lines, and then down into your breather cavity. That's a lot of information. You know, this is 85 years later, and we kind of have some stuff to go off of. When they test ran these motors when they were new, they would set the oiling to the optimal spot. And I have some old parts here that show... Wait, maybe we need to reset this. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
I have some old parts here. They would hit the rocker box with a punch, and then each and every shaft has a line that's staked in it. So if these two would have came together, that's where the rocker arm would have been set for optimal oiling. And you can see on these early shafts, they have a groove that goes all the way through, and the oil comes through here, and then gets in this groove, and then goes out the rocker arm, and that's how your valve spring and valve guide are oiled. This groove right here was added in 37 for getting oil to the push rod so that those didn't wear out so quick. So when we rebuild these, we build up the shaft, regrind it, and then nickel plate the rocker arm and then hone that to fit. And then we set it at the factory setting and just hope for the best. And it usually works out good, but they still need a little bit of tweaking.
It's usually 3,000 to 5,000 in play.
Yep, exactly. And what you have to do is you fire the bike up with the right tank off, let it warm up, ride it around just for a short distance, and then you check to see which cup has oil in it, and then you adjust them specifically. And I've only had it happen once where one squeaks like it wasn't getting enough oil. That's pretty rare.
Yeah.
They're usually good on oiling. You usually have to turn them down. So this is the factory tool for turning them down. Dad, you want to tell them where we got this and who we got it
I bought that from Mike Smith before he died. He bought a bunch of parts, and these were in them. And I've had the opportunity to get a new old stock one, but every time I use this one, Mike is helping me from the grave. So it's lots of spirituality. He was a very religious guy. He's a very good friend. He lived in Oregon, and a mentor to us all.
Yeah, he was a good friend. He was really into early bikes.
Yes.
He was a good family man, had a wonderful wife, wonderful sons. They all kind of got into the business. A few of them are still in it. And his legacy goes on even though he's not here. So
He was, we were out by Lake Tahoe one time. Well, no, somewhere in California. Anyway, it was mountains and hills and stuff, and he had this hot rod 1913 single, and he drafted me downhill, and I clocked him at 65 miles an hour. He's got big kahunas.
yeah, he was a cool dude.
Oh, he was a cool guy. Cool guy. A real guy into real motorcycles.
Yeah.
Like what we're striving to be.
Yeah, he's got some big shoes to fill.
Yes.
So the way this tool works is, this is a 7/16 fine thread. So you take the rocker arm nut off. If this one is over oiling, and it's usually the exhaust that we have problems with, we'll take this nut off, screw this on. This locks it into the shaft. Yeah. This locks it into the shaft. And since this is a front intake, you would, if you wanted to move it less, you would move it clockwise. So you just move it in like quarter of a rotation increments.
One thing to mention, you want to loosen the nut.
Yeah, we got to
over on the other side.
After this is on, yeah, you got to loosen the jam nut on the other side. And then once you move it the quarter inch or quarter revolution, you tighten that nut, and then break this loose. And then put your brass washer and chrome nut back on, and then then you go out and test it and see if you made it worse or better. And after messing with it for enough, it kind of turns out. So we're going to take this off the lift and fire it up, and then you can see how it does.
Okay. It is? That's where the oil was coming from.
Hey, can you explain to me what happened?
Okay. Well, we just started this up to try to figure out which rocker needed to be adjusted. And I'm sure one of them still needs to be adjusted, but we found the biggest oil leak. And the biggest oil leak was actually the oil pressure gauge. This is a 36/7 only part. And it was leaking out of the little diaphragm flipper area. So we're going to have to take that off. But I'll fire it up real quick for you just so you can see how a little bit of oil ends up looking like a lot. And all liquid wants to go down, so I think the over-oiling head problem we had was actually the oil gauge. We wouldn't have found out unless we would have taken this off.
So I have a story. A friend of mine has a 37 with enclosed rockers, and he had a big oil leak. And he called me, I told him what to do. I didn't see the bike. And anyway, I said, hey, take the right-hand gas tank off, fire it up, and then you can see exactly where it's leaking. And it was the same thing. His diaphragm in his gauge was leaking.
I don't remember who restored this one, but I have to take a little bit deeper look at.
Yep.
It's no big deal. There's thousands of things that go into getting these bikes fixed up and ready to go. There's always teething things. on the lift. We solved our oil gauge problem. We took off the one that was restored, and it had a punctured diaphragm, and it was leaking oil coming down here, leaking down these, and leaking all over the motor, which was reassuring because it was like, oh man, I thought that we had messed up putting this thing together or there was some sort of problem, but it was really up there. We found out that both of these were over oiling, so we adjusted them and turned them down as per the diagram in the video from the shop build. And this one is still putting out a little bit more oil, so I'm gonna adjust it. I think that you have to turn it clockwise to turn down the oil level on the rear exhaust. I'm gonna look at the book real quick, and yeah, it is clockwise. So the first step is to take off this nut. It's 1 3/8. I like to use plastic to protect the chrome and the aluminum. Keep it nice and fresh. I know the open end is silly, but I feel like it doesn't give it straight of a pull down. Nice. These are original nuts. They have little brass washers and sealer underneath. Okay, so here's the stake mark that we talked about earlier. Looking straight down. See the stake mark on the threads?
Yep.
So if we were to take this brass washer off, which we don't have to, there's probably a center punch mark in the rocker box that's lined up with. Okay, so this is my tool that we got from Mike Smith, and it makes me so happy to use it. We just turn it onto the 7/16 thread and lock it in here. This locks it onto the shaft. Okay, and then I go over to the other side. Some plastic to protect this. Okay, so now it's loose. We want to turn this one and this one are clockwise to do less oil to the shaft, and these ones are counterclockwise, but I have to check every other time. Alright, we'll just move it a quarter turn, and that just means that the oil has to go farther around to get to the hole to go in the arm over on this side. So we'll tighten up the other nut. I like to look over. You can hold it for backup, but it usually doesn't turn. That's good. Now we can break this loose, thread it off. Back on. The next step is to clean the bike up so that we can see how much oil is left after a quick ride. We were really close. I think this is going to be enough. Right, we'll take it for a test ride tomorrow. Okay. I'll Craig clean it up in the morning. We'll take it for a ride and see how we're doing. So I like to get them to where after a couple hundred miles, there's just a little bit of mist on the oil tank, a little bit of mist right here. So. Our adjustments seem to have worked. None of the stems are squeaking in the guides. The oil's returning nicely, and we have it metered down as much as we can get it. Maybe we could go a little bit more, but I think it's in a happy spot. So we put the right tank on. Everett switched out the oil gauge with one that I borrowed from my friend Johnny till we get a new diaphragm. We'll just keep riding it and sorting out bugs and having fun. So thanks for watching, and I think we're going to do more of these kind of videos. We might have to move it to a more environmentally clean spot. We'll move over.
Yeah.